"Everyone out," Alpha King Grant Ashford said, and the war room went silent. No one argued. Not the council members. Not the armed guards. Not even the royal healer kneeling beside the broken medicine tray. Claire Whitmore stood near the doorway with a small glass bottle in her hand, wondering why the most dangerous man in the Western Pax was staring directly at her. Rain hammered the tall windows of Blackridge Palace, and lightning flashed across the stone walls. Grant had not slept in 6 nights. Everyone knew it. They could see it in the dark circles beneath his eyes, in the tension locked across his shoulders, and in the thin black veins climbing the side of his neck like cracks beneath ice. 10 minutes earlier, a healer had tried to check his pulse. Grant's wolf had reacted before the man's fingers touched him. The healer had been thrown backward, frightened but unharmed, and now nobody wanted to take another step. "Your Majesty," Counselor Everett Shaw began carefully. "The council should remain present." Grant did not look at him. That was not a suggestion. Chairs scraped across the floor. Boots moved quickly. Claire lowered her gaze as the council filed past her, but Lady Victoria Hale paused at the door. She looked Claire over, from her plain gray dress to the medicine bottle in her hand, and gave a faint, cold smile. "Careful, Omega," Victoria whispered. "Kings don't notice women like you unless something has gone wrong." Claire said nothing. She had learned years ago that surviving Blackridge meant knowing when silence was stronger than pride. The door closed. The room suddenly felt twice as large. Grant remained seated at the head of the long table, one hand gripping the carved armrest of his chair. He looked less like a king and more like a man holding a locked door shut with his bare hands. Claire could hear his breathing from 20 feet away. Slow. Controlled. Too controlled. "Come closer," he said. Her fingers tightened around the bottle. "I was told to deliver your sleeping medicine. I didn't ask about the medicine." His voice was quiet, which somehow made it more dangerous. Claire moved forward until only the end of the table separated them. The herbs hidden beneath her collar suddenly felt useless. She had covered her scent that morning with cedar oil, crushed sage, and bitter orange, the same mixture she had trusted for nearly 10 years. But Grant's eyes sharpened. Somewhere beneath his calm expression, his wolf had noticed her. Claire felt it too, a strange pull beneath her ribs, quick and bright, like a silver thread tightening between them. She nearly dropped the bottle. Grant rose. The black veins along his neck began to fade. Not completely, just enough for him to notice. His expression changed, not into anger, but something closer to disbelief. "What is your name?" he asked. "Claire Whitmore." At the sound of it, his wolf went still. The entire room seemed to hold its breath with him. Grant walked around the table, stopping only a few feet away. Claire expected dominance, suspicion, maybe another order. Instead, she saw exhaustion. Real exhaustion. The kind that had nothing to do with missed sleep and everything to do with being alone too long. "Your Majesty?" she asked softly. His gaze dropped to the hollow of her throat, where the hidden mark beneath her skin had begun to burn. Then he looked back into her eyes. "What are you hiding under that perfume?" Claire held his gaze for 1 second too long, then stepped back. "Nothing that concerns the crown." Grant's expression hardened, but the black veins at his neck continued to fade. That frightened her more than his anger. He had been unraveling in front of the entire council, yet her presence had quieted something no royal healer could reach. Claire lowered her eyes. "The medicine should be taken with water. Half the bottle, no more." "You did not answer me." "I answered enough." For a moment, neither of them moved. Rain rattled against the windows, and somewhere beyond the stone walls, a wolf called from the forest. Grant's head turned slightly, as if he heard an answer inside himself. Then he looked back at Claire. "You may go." She did not wait for him to change his mind. By the time she reached the lower medical wing, her hands were shaking. Dr. Evelyn Brooks was sorting bandages behind the front desk when Claire entered. One look at her face, and the older woman locked the door. He noticed. Claire set the untouched bottle down. "He asked what I was hiding under the perfume." Evelyn closed her eyes. The cedar mixture should have lasted another month. It did not. Claire pulled off one glove. A pale crescent of light flickered beneath the skin near her wrist, then disappeared. This happened when he came close. Evelyn caught her hand and turned it toward the lamp. "Did he touch you?" "No." "Did his wolf react?" Claire remembered the sudden silence in the war room, the way Grant's body had eased before either of them understood why. "Yes." Evelyn released her slowly. "Then you need to stay away from him." Claire gave a humorless laugh. He is the king. I live in his palace. You have avoided him for 10 years. I was not standing 20 feet from him while he was losing control. Evelyn moved toward the shelves, pretending to rearrange bottles. Claire knew that habit. It meant she was afraid. Tell me the truth, Claire said. Was he told I died? Evelyn stopped. That was answer enough. Before Claire could press further, the hallway bell rang once. Every healer in Blackridge knew what it meant. A royal summons. Evelyn opened the door to find Beta Commander Mason Reed standing outside with 2 guards. He was broad-shouldered, calm, and still wearing the dark uniform from the council chamber. His eyes settled on Claire. Miss Whitmore, the king has requested your service in the royal wing. Claire folded her arms. I am not a royal healer. He knows. Then why me? Mason hesitated, which told her the order had surprised him too. His condition worsened after you left. Evelyn stepped between them. She is not qualified. The king did not request a physician. Mason's voice softened. He requested Claire. A cold weight settled in her stomach. For how long? Effective immediately. Claire looked at Evelyn, but the older woman had gone pale. This was what they had feared. Not recognition. Proximity. The bond had been quiet for years because distance had kept it sleeping. Now Grant Ashford knew her scent existed, even if he did not yet know what it meant. Mason offered her a sealed envelope bearing the royal crest. Claire broke it open. Inside was a single handwritten line. Bring the Omega to the East Wing. She stays near me until I understand why my wolf knows her. Claire read the king's message twice, hoping the words might change. They did not. Mason waited in the hallway while Dr. Evelyn packed a small medical bag with more force than necessary. You will keep the cedar oil on, Evelyn said. You will not let him touch the mark, and you will leave the moment his wolf becomes unstable. He is the Alpha King, Claire replied quietly. I doubt he plans to ask permission before becoming unstable. Mason almost smiled, but Evelyn did not. 20 minutes later, Claire entered the Royal East Wing for the first time. The halls were warmer than the rest of Blackridge Palace, but they felt emptier. There were no servants, no visiting council members, and no family portraits. Only guards standing at every doorway, and the low sound of thunder rolling across the mountains. Grant's bedroom looked nothing like she expected. It was large, but almost bare. A bed, a fireplace, a desk covered with pack reports, and a worn leather chair facing the windows. Grant stood beside the fireplace with his sleeves rolled to his elbows. He had removed his formal coat, but tension still covered him like armor. Commander Reed said your condition worsened, Claire said. Commander Reed talks too much. Then I can leave. She turned toward the door. Stay. The word came out sharper than he intended. Grant closed his eyes for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was calmer. Please. Claire looked back. Kings did not say please often. Alpha Kings probably said it even less. She set the medical bag on the desk. You need to take the medicine. It does not work. You have not tried this dose. I have tried every dose. He moved toward the bed but stopped halfway, pressing his palm against his temple. The dark lines had returned along his neck. Claire could sense his wolf pacing beneath his skin, restless and trapped. How long has it been since you slept more than an hour? She asked. 3 years. Her chest tightened. And before that? Not well since I was 17. The age struck her hard. 17. The year her pack vanished from every official record. Claire reached for the medicine, but thunder cracked directly above the palace. Grant turned so quickly that the chair beside him fell over. His eyes flashed with the pale gold of his wolf. One of the guards opened the door, but Claire raised a hand. Do not come in. Grant's breathing grew rough. Claire. It was the first time he had used her name. Not Miss Whitmore. Not Omega. Claire stepped closer, even as every instinct warned her to run. Look at me. His hands curled at his sides. You should leave. I will, after you breathe. She placed her palm against the center of his chest. His heartbeat struck hard beneath her hand. Match mine, she said. Slowly. Grant stared down at her, fighting something she could not see. Then his shoulders lowered by an inch. Claire breathed in. He followed. She breathed out. He followed again. The gold faded from his eyes. A wave of exhaustion moved through him so suddenly that he sat on the edge of the bed. Claire remained beside him, her hand still over his heart. This is not the medicine, he murmured. No, it is you. Before she could answer, Grant leaned back against the pillows, still watching her, as though she were the only solid thing in the room. Claire sat beside him, planning to stay for only a minute. His arms settled around her when another rumble shook the windows, and somehow her head came to rest against his chest. His heartbeat slowed beneath her ear. Warmth spread through the bond, quiet and unfamiliar. Claire meant to move. Instead, for the first time in years, she felt safe enough to close her eyes. When Mason returned at sunrise, he found the Alpha King asleep and the missing Omega curled against his chest. He took one careful step forward. Grant's eyes opened at once. His arm tightened protectively around Claire. "Do not wake her," he warned, his voice low and deadly calm. "Not unless you are prepared to explain why." Claire woke to voices outside the bedroom door and the steady rise and fall of Grant's chest beneath her cheek. For one confused second, she forgot where she was. Then she felt his arm around her back, heard the rain softening against the windows, and remembered everything. She sat up too quickly. Grant opened his eyes at once. "Easy," he said. Claire moved to the edge of the bed, smoothing her wrinkled gray dress. "I should not be here. You were helping me. I fell asleep on the Alpha King, and I slept for 6 hours." He said it like the number meant more than any victory report on his desk. Before Claire could answer, Mason knocked once and entered. His expression was controlled, but the scent of concern followed him into the room. "Your Majesty, the council has requested an emergency meeting." Grant remained seated against the pillows. "Denied." Mason glanced at Claire. "They already know she spent the night." Claire's stomach dropped. "How?" "This palace has more gossip than guards," Grant said. He stood, looking rested in a way that made him seem even more powerful. The black veins along his neck were gone. "Move Miss Whitmore's belongings to the room across from mine." Claire turned toward him. No, both men looked at her. She rose slowly. "You do not get to move me around the palace because your wolf likes having me nearby." Grant's jaw tightened. "Someone noticed your effect on me. That makes you a target. Then tell me that. Do not issue an order about my life while I am standing right here." Silence filled the room. Mason studied the floor with sudden interest. Grant looked as if no one had spoken to him that way in years. Claire expected anger. Instead, he nodded once. "You are right." The simple admission surprised her. He crossed to the desk, took a brass key from the top drawer, and placed it in her palm. "The room across the hall is available. The lock works from the inside. No one enters unless you choose. You may stay there, return to the medical wing, or leave Blackridge entirely." Claire closed her fingers around the key. "And if I leave?" Something guarded moved through his eyes. "I will provide an escort and safe passage." His wolf did not agree. She could feel its protest through the faint silver thread between them, but Grant kept his voice calm. "That mattered. I will take the room for now," she said. "For now," he repeated. By noon, the entire palace knew. Servants stopped talking when Claire passed. Guards watched her with open curiosity. 2 young Omegas near the kitchen smiled at her, but an older Beta pulled them away. Claire had almost reached the east stairwell when Lady Victoria stepped into her path. She wore a cream suit tailored like armor and the expression of someone who had never been asked to move aside. "So the rumors are true," Victoria said. "The king brings one unknown Omega into his bed, and suddenly she receives royal rooms. I was treating his condition." "Of course you were." Victoria moved closer. "Do you know what happens to women who confuse an alpha's temporary weakness with affection?" Claire held her ground. "Do you know what happens to people who confuse rank with permission?" A few nearby servants went still. Victoria's smile vanished. "You have no family, no standing, and no place beside the throne. Then it should be easy for you not to feel threatened." Before Victoria could respond, Grant's voice carried down the corridor. "Lady Hale." He approached with Mason behind him, his expression unreadable. Victoria straightened. "Your Majesty, I was only explaining palace expectations." Grant stopped beside Claire, but he did not touch her or speak for her. "Miss Whitmore appears capable of understanding expectations." His gaze shifted to the servants watching nearby. "What this palace needs to understand is that she is here by her own choice." Claire looked at him, surprised by the wording. Grant then turned to her. "The room is ready. Would you like to see it?" "Not an order. A question." Claire nodded. As they walked away, she noticed a small black feather lying outside her new door. Grant saw it too. His expression changed instantly. Mason reached for it, but Grant stopped him. "Do not touch that." Claire stared at the feather. A thin silver symbol had been burned into its spine, the same symbol hidden beneath her collarbone. Grant looked at her, all warmth gone from his face. Someone in this palace knows who you are. Grant ordered the east wing sealed before Claire had time to ask another question. Mason sent guards to both stairwells, and the black feather disappeared into a glass evidence box without anyone touching it. You recognize the mark, Grant said once they were inside Claire's new room. It was warm, quiet, and far too elegant for someone who had spent 10 years sleeping above the medical wing. Claire kept her back to him as she set the brass key on the table. I have seen something like it. That is not what I asked. She turned, and I am not ready to answer. His wolf pressed against the bond, not angry, but alert. Grant looked at the closed door, then back at her. Until we know who left that feather, you do not walk through the palace alone. Claire folded her arms. We discussed orders. Then consider it a request from a man who would prefer you alive. The words were blunt, but the fear beneath them was real. Claire felt it through the faint silver thread connecting them. Mason can assign one guard, she said. One. And the guard stays outside my room. Grant nodded. Agreed. It became the first rule in a strange arrangement neither of them named. Claire stayed in the East Wing. Grant attended council meetings, PAC briefings, and border calls during the day. At night, she sat in the leather chair beside his bed while he tried to sleep. He still refused medicine. He no longer refused her presence. The first night, he slept 2 hours. The second, nearly 4. By the fourth, the dark lines on his neck had faded to thin shadows. They spoke in the quiet spaces before sleep. Small things at first. Claire told him she preferred coffee strong enough to taste bitter. Grant admitted he hated formal dinners and knew every hidden path through the Blackridge forest. He asked about her work in the medical wing. She asked why the Alpha King kept an old baseball on his desk. My younger brother gave it to me, he said. Where is he now? Grant's face closed. Gone. Claire did not push. The next afternoon, Grant returned from combat training with a cut across his shoulder where a practice blade had slipped beneath his protective gear. It was not serious, but he refused to let the palace healer near him. You know I am not a physician, Claire said as he sat beside the fire. You know more than most physicians. That sounds like flattery. It is an observation. She cleaned the shallow wound while he washed her hands. The room smelled of cedar, smoke, and rain drifting through a cracked window. Claire reached for fresh water, and some spilled over her fingers. The cedar oil coating her skin washed away. She froze. Grant did too. Her true scent rose between them, soft and unmistakable, like white pine warmed by summer sunlight. The effect on him was immediate. His hand closed around her wrist, not painfully, but with enough urgency to stop her from pulling away. His eyes flashed gold. Claire's hidden mark burned beneath her collarbone. Grant, she whispered. His breathing changed. Not wild. Stunned. Somewhere inside him, the wolf that had fought sleep for years lowered its head as though recognizing home. Grant leaned closer, searching her face with a look that carried more grief than anger. I know this scent. Claire tried to pull her hand free. He released her at once, but neither of them moved back. You cannot, she said. I smelled it in dreams before I ever became king. His voice dropped. After the bond vanished, it was the only thing I remembered. Claire's heart struck hard against her ribs. She had known this moment might come. She had never imagined it would hurt so much. Grant looked at the water running over her bare fingers, then at the herbs and oils lined beside the medical bag. Understanding settled across his face. You have been hiding from me. I have been surviving. Why? Claire looked toward the window, but his reflection remained beside hers in the dark glass. Because the last Omega who carried this scent was declared dead. Grant went completely still. The room seemed to narrow around them. When he spoke again, the king was gone from his voice. Only the exhausted man remained. Why do you smell like the maid I buried? Claire looked down at her wet hands. The cedar oil had washed away, and with it, 10 years of careful silence. Because I am the mate you buried, she said. Grant did not move. For one long second, even the fire seemed quiet. Then he stood so quickly the chair scraped across the floor. No, Claire flinched, but his anger was not aimed at her. It filled the room because he had nowhere else to put it. I was 15 when the bond appeared, she continued. You were 17. Our packs were supposed to meet at the winter gathering in Oregon. Grant stared at her. Blackridge was told your pack attacked a royal envoy. We did not. I was told there were no survivors. There were not supposed to be. The words landed between them with a weight Claire had carried most of her life. She pulled aside the collar of her dress just enough to reveal the faint crescent mark beneath her collarbone. It glowed once, responding to him, then faded. Grant's face lost what little color remained. His wolf surged through the bond, full of grief, recognition, and a rage so deep Claire could barely breathe around it. Grant stepped back at once, forcing distance between them. "Who brought you here?" he asked. "Dr. Evelyn. She found me near the southern border 3 days after my pack disappeared. And she hid you inside my own palace? She kept me alive, while I spent years believing you were dead." Claire's voice sharpened. "You think those years were easy for me?" He stopped. "I grew up under a false name. I learned which halls to avoid, which ceremonies required scent registration, and how much cedar oil it took to disappear in a room full of wolves. I did not know whether your family had ordered it." Grant looked as though she had struck him. "My family. Your father was king. I was his heir, not his counsel. That does not make the fear less real." He turned toward the window, one hand braced against the stone frame. Outside, Blackridge stretched across the dark mountain ridge, all steel lights and guarded roads. A kingdom built on records, laws, and loyalty. Claire wondered how much of it rested on lies. "You should have told me," he said. When I was 15 and hunted. When I was 20 and serving food to council members who called my pack traitors. Or last week, when your wolf nearly lost control in the war room." Grant closed his eyes. When he faced her again, the anger had burned down into something more honest. "You are right." Claire had not expected the admission. It made her defenses waver. "I do not know who gave the order," he said, "but I will find out. And if it leads back to the crown, then the crown answers for it." Before Claire could respond, the door opened, and Evelyn stepped inside, escorted by Mason. She took one look at Claire's uncovered wrist and Grant's expression and understood. "You told him," she said. "She told me enough," Grant replied. "Now you will tell me the rest." Evelyn's shoulders lowered. "Not here." Mason locked the door behind them. Evelyn crossed to the fireplace and pressed a hidden catch beneath the mantel. A narrow panel opened, revealing a bundle of sealed papers wrapped in faded blue cloth. Grant took them to the desk. The first document was a transfer order for Claire under a false identity. The second was a list of children removed from the Whitmore pack records. The third was almost blank, except for a royal authorization mark at the bottom. Claire leaned closer. "That is not your father's seal." Grant's eyes hardened. "No." Mason stepped beside him. "It belongs to Counselor Everett Shaw." Evelyn closed the hidden panel and faced Grant across the room. "Everett Shaw signed the order, but he did not create the magic that hid Claire from you." Grant's fingers tightened around the papers. "What magic?" Claire felt the mark beneath her collarbone warm again. Evelyn looked at her with the same careful sadness she had worn for years. "The bond was never destroyed. It was sealed." The room went still. Mason stepped closer to the desk. "A mate bond cannot be sealed without blood from both lines." "Normally, no," Evelyn said. "But the Whitmore family carried an older gift. Claire's mother used it to protect her." Claire stared at her. "My mother did this. She knew someone was hunting your pack. She believed that if the crown could not sense you, you might survive." Grant looked down at the authorization bearing Everett's seal. "And the cost?" Evelyn hesitated. "The seal forced both of you to experience the bond as a loss." Claire felt abandoned. "You believed she was dead. Your wolf has been fighting that grief ever since." Grant turned away. His breathing remained controlled, but Claire could feel the pain moving through the silver thread between them. It was not only his. For years, she had told herself the emptiness inside her was freedom. Now she understood it had been a locked door. "Can it be removed?" Grant asked. Evelyn nodded. "It is already weakening. The night Claire calmed your wolf, the seal cracked. Her true scent weakened it further." Grant faced Claire. Hope appeared in his eyes, sharp enough to frighten her. "Then we finish breaking it." "No," Claire said. His expression changed. "Claire, you just learned I am alive. I just learned my mother tied our pain together to save me. That does not mean I am ready to complete a bond because your wolf wants it." Gold flashed briefly in his eyes. The pressure of his alpha presence filled the room, powerful and instinctive. Claire held her ground. Grant closed his hands at his sides and forced the pressure back. "My wolf recognizes you," he said quietly. "That is not the same as me giving you permission." The words struck him harder than anger would have. He stepped away from her, creating space on purpose. You are right. Mason looked between them, but said nothing. Grant reached for the chain around his neck and removed a small iron key marked with the Blackridge crest. He placed it on the table between them. The original sealing records will be in the restricted archive beneath the council chamber. This opens it. Claire did not take the key. Why give it to me? Because the truth concerns your life more than my throne. His wolf pushed against the bond again, restless, demanding closeness. Grant ignored it. I will not claim you. I will not order you to stay. And I will not let the council decide what this bond means. Claire searched his face for the king who expected obedience. She found only a tired man trying to choose differently from those who came before him. Slowly, she picked up the key. The metal warmed in her palm. Grant lowered himself to one knee before her. Mason drew a quiet breath. Even Evelyn looked stunned. Grant did not offer a crown or ask for forgiveness. He simply looked up at Claire and placed his open hand over his heart. The bond may want you, he said. My wolf may already know you. But I will wait until you choose me. The crescent beneath Claire's collarbone flared silver. At the same moment, a warning bell rang from the lower courtyard. Mason crossed to the window. Below, council guards were sealing the palace gates. He turned back, his face grim. Everett knows the archive has been opened. The warning bell stopped, but the silence it left behind felt worse. Mason moved away from the window. Council guards are controlling the gates. Everett is calling an emergency assembly in the Great Hall. Grant rose from his knee, and the king returned to his posture, though not to his eyes. On whose authority? He claims the Alpha King has been compromised by forbidden Omega influence. Claire closed her fingers around the archive key. He means me. He means to frighten the other packs, Grant said. Fear is easier to govern than truth. Evelyn gathered the hidden papers, but Mason shook his head. We cannot move those through the main hall. Everett's men will search everyone. A knock sounded at the door. 3 slow strikes. Then Lady Victoria Hale entered without waiting for permission, flanked by 2 council guards. Her face was pale, but her voice remained steady. The council has summoned Miss Whitmore for a public scent examination. Grant stepped between Victoria and Claire. Denied. Victoria lifted her chin. Refusal will be treated as proof that she has bewitched you. Gold flickered in Grant's eyes. Choose your next words carefully. Claire touched his sleeve. The contact was small, but the pressure of his alpha presence eased. What happens if I agree? She asked. Victoria looked at her. Every pack representative will witness the examination. If your scent is ordinary, the accusation ends. And if it is not? Victoria's silence answered first. Then the council may place you under royal containment until your abilities are understood. Grant's voice dropped. They will not put her in a cage. Claire looked up at him. If you stop this by force, Everett wins. He will say your wolf has already chosen for you. I do not care what he says. You have 12 packs depending on what you do next. I care. The words hurt him. She felt it through the bond, but he did not argue. Claire turned to Victoria. I will take the examination. Grant's jaw tightened. Claire, you gave me a choice. Let me use it. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he nodded once. Mason stays beside you. No, Claire said. He stays with the king. I walk in on my own. The great hall was already full when Claire entered. Alpha representatives stood beneath the banners of the 12 allied packs. Betas lined the walls. Omegas had been pushed toward the rear, as if rank determined how much truth a person deserved to hear. Everett Shaw waited at the center of a silver circle carved into the floor. His silver hair was perfectly combed, his dark suit untouched by the panic he had created. Claire Whitmore, he announced, you are accused of using an unregistered gift to influence the judgment of the Alpha King. Murmurs spread across the hall. Claire stepped into the circle. I have influenced no one. Everett smiled without warmth. Then you have nothing to fear. Grant entered behind her, wearing no crown. He stopped at the edge of the crowd rather than taking the throne. Claire understood what he was doing. He would not hide her, but he would not stand over her either. Victoria approached with a glass bowl of clear water and a white cloth. Remove the masking oil from your wrists, she said. Claire dipped the cloth into the water. Every eye followed her hands as she wiped away the cedar and sage. Her true scent moved through the hall, warm pine and summer air. Several wolves reacted at once. Grant's did not surge. It settled. Everett's smile faded. Then the crescent mark beneath Claire's collarbone began to glow through her dress. A line of silver light traveled from the circle beneath her feet toward the black stone throne. The ancient Blackridge crest answered with a deep golden flare. The entire hall fell silent. Evelyn's voice came from the doorway. "That is not the mark of a spellcaster." Everett turned toward her. "Be quiet." Evelyn held up the hidden records. "It is the mark of a heartkeeper." Claire looked at the shining crest, then at Grant. He was staring at her as if the palace itself had just remembered a truth everyone else had tried to erase. Behind Everett, 3 council guards lowered their weapons. One of them whispered, "The royal line recognizes her." Everett's face hardened. "Then she is more dangerous than we believed." "Dangerous to whom?" Claire asked. Her voice was not loud, but it carried through the great hall. Everett Shaw turned toward her, clearly unprepared for the Omega inside the silver circle to challenge him. The ancient Blackridge crest still glowed behind the throne, answering the light beneath Claire's collarbone. Evelyn stepped forward with the hidden records pressed against her chest. "Heartkeepers were never weapons," she said. "They were guardians of balance. Their presence helped alpha rulers resist the corruption that came with too much inherited power." Everett gave a cold laugh. "That is a comforting version of history." "It is the version your council erased," Evelyn replied. Murmurs spread among the pack representatives. Claire looked toward the Omegas gathered at the rear of the hall. Some watched her with fear. Others stood a little straighter. Grant remained beyond the silver circle, every muscle in his body tense. She could feel his wolf through the mate bond, not demanding, not raging, but waiting for her decision. Everett raised one hand. "This woman can alter the Alpha King's behavior. She can calm his wolf, influence his judgment, and weaken the authority of the throne. Until we understand the extent of that power, she must be confined." 2 council guards moved toward the circle. Grant took one step forward. The temperature in the hall seemed to drop. "Stop." The guards froze. Everett faced him. "Your Majesty, your reaction proves my concern. My reaction proves that you are attempting to imprison a citizen without evidence of a crime. She is not an ordinary citizen." Claire turned toward Grant. "Do not defend me because of what I am." His eyes met hers. "I am defending your right to remain free." Everett pointed toward the glowing crest. "Her bloodline belongs to the crown." The words caused something inside Claire to go still. She had spent 10 years hiding, apologizing, and making herself smaller so powerful people would overlook her. Now a room full of leaders was discussing her as though she were an object discovered in a locked vault. She stepped out of the silver circle. Several alphas reacted with alarm, but Claire kept walking until she stood directly before Everett. "My blood belongs to me." The mark beneath her collarbone burned brighter. "My scent belongs to me. Whatever bond exists between the king and me belongs to no council, no pack law, and no throne." The silence that followed was complete. Everett's expression hardened. "You speak boldly for someone without rank. Maybe rank is the problem." Grant's wolf stirred through the bond, not with anger, but pride. Claire felt it so clearly that her breath almost caught. Everett turned toward the gathered representatives. "This is precisely why containment is necessary." Grant walked to the council table. Slowly, he removed the black and gold royal insignia from his coat. It was the symbol every Alpha King had worn for nearly 2 centuries. He placed it on the polished wood. "Then hear my ruling." Mason moved beside him. Victoria watched from near the circle, her face unreadable. Grant looked across the 12-pack banners before letting his gaze settle on Everett. "No Omega will be imprisoned because the council fears her bloodline." Everett's mouth tightened. "The throne requires stability, not at the cost of her freedom. Without a heartkeeper, your condition will worsen. The alliance could collapse." Grant glanced at Claire. There was fear in his eyes, but none of it was for himself. "Then I will face that consequence." He pushed the royal insignia toward the center of the table. "If this throne requires Claire Whitmore to wear chains so I can keep wearing a crown, then the throne can stand without me." Shock moved through the hall. Claire stared at him as the weight of his choice reached her through the bond. He had not claimed her. He had not asked her to save him. He had placed his power down before allowing anyone to take hers. Everett recovered first. "You would abandon 12 packs for 1 Omega?" Grant's answer came without hesitation. "I would abandon any crown that asks me to become her jailer." A guard rushed through the rear doors carrying a sealed message. He handed it to Mason, who broke the wax and read quickly. His face changed. Your Majesty, 3 northern packs have withdrawn their recognition of your rule. Everett's faint smile returned. It appears the throne has already begun to fall. The great hall erupted into overlapping voices as pack representatives demanded answers, but Grant did not reach for the royal insignia he had placed on the table. He looked at Mason instead. Seal the eastern roads and keep the civilians away from the palace gates. No one makes a move without my order. Mason nodded and left at once. Everett watched him go with quiet satisfaction. You see what she has cost you already. Claire turned toward him. You withdrew those packs before this hearing began. Everett's expression did not change, but Victoria looked sharply at him. Grant noticed. What do you know? He asked her. Victoria hesitated, then stepped away from the council side of the room. My father received letters from the Northern Alphas 3 days ago. They were promised independent territory if they rejected your rule. Everett's voice hardened. Be careful, Victoria. I have been careful my entire life, she said. That is how I know when someone is building a trap. A second messenger entered, this one carrying news from the Western Gate. Blackridge had been surrounded, not by an army, but by supply wagons turned back, roads closed, and Allied patrols ordered to stand down. It was a bloodless siege designed to make Grant appear powerless. He dismissed the assembly and ordered the pack leaders to remain inside the palace until the roads were safe. Claire followed him into the empty council chamber, where the crown rested beneath glass at the far end of the room. You were going to give it up, she said. Grant stood with both hands on the table. I was trying to prevent 12 packs from tearing themselves apart. That is not what I asked. He looked at her. Exhaustion had returned to his face, but something else was there too. Guilt. Claire felt it through the bond before he spoke. There is something I should have told you. Her chest tightened. About Everett? About Noah. The name struck harder than any accusation in the Great Hall. Noah Whitmore had been her older foster brother, the boy who carried her through the woods the night their pack disappeared. Claire had believed he died buying Evelyn enough time to save her. What about him? Grant opened a locked drawer and removed a thin file. 2 years ago, a border scout reported seeing a prisoner matching his description at an abandoned council outpost. Claire stared at the file without touching it. You knew he might be alive. I had one unconfirmed report. For 2 years, I sent people to investigate. The outpost was empty. And you decided I did not deserve to know? Grant stepped closer, then stopped when she backed away. I was afraid the report was another trap. That was my risk to take. I know that now. No, you knew it then. Her voice cracked despite her effort to control it. You just wanted to keep me here. The truth in his silence hurt more than a denial would have. Grant lowered his gaze. Part of me did. Claire picked up the file. Inside was a faded photograph of a man behind a chain-link fence, older and thinner than she remembered, but unmistakably Noah. A handwritten note listed a location 30 miles north of Blackridge. Everett had signed the transfer order. He is using Noah to pull me out of the palace, she said. Yes. And you were never going to let me go. I was going to find another way. Claire closed the file. You protected me from the truth because you did not trust me with my own choice. Grant's face tightened. Claire, please. She removed the brass key to her room and placed it beside the abandoned royal insignia. You asked me to choose you. You never said you would choose honesty. Then she walked out of the council chamber before the bond could convince her to stay. Claire left Blackridge before sunrise with Noah's photograph inside her coat and the mate bond pulling at her like a hand around her heart. She took an old medical truck from the lower garage and drove north through 30 miles of frozen forest, past abandoned ranger stations and roads buried beneath fresh snow. Grant did not send guards after her. That almost hurt more. The council outpost appeared just beyond the tree line, a low concrete building surrounded by rusted fencing. No lights. No movement. Claire parked a quarter-mile away and walked the rest, keeping one hand near the small radio Mason had once given her. The front door stood open. Noah. Her voice disappeared into the empty hallway. A faint scent reached her from below. Cedar smoke, cold metal, and something familiar beneath both. Family. Claire followed it down a narrow staircase. Noah sat behind a locked gate at the far end of the basement. He was older than the boy in her memories, with gray at his temples and exhaustion carved into his face. But when he saw her, his eyes filled with the same fierce warmth. Claire, he whispered, She rushed toward him. I thought you were dead. You were supposed to think that. The gate opened before she touched it. Claire stopped. Noah looked past her. It is a trap. The lights came on. Everett Shaw stepped from the shadows with 4 council guards behind him. At least one Whitmore still understands strategy, he said. Claire moved between Everett and Noah. Let him go. He has been useful for years. A surviving traitor gives frightened leaders something to blame. Noah gripped the bars. Do not listen to him. Everett held up a sealed document marked with the old royal crest. Your pack was not destroyed because of rebellion. King Alaric Ashford ordered it. Claire felt the floor shift beneath her. Grant's father? He feared the Heartkeepers. An alpha king who could be calmed could also be questioned. Your mother believed power required restraint. Alaric believed restraint looked too much like weakness. Everett handed her the document. The signature was real. She had seen it on royal decrees all her life. You signed the removal orders, Claire said. I carried out my king's command. Then I improved upon it. I kept you hidden, kept Grant unstable, and made certain every pack believed only the council could hold the alliance together. Claire looked at Noah. Why keep him alive? Insurance. One day, I knew you would become inconvenient. A guard took the radio from her pocket. Everett's smile was almost gentle. Blackridge is already collapsing. By tomorrow, Grant will either surrender the throne or lose control in front of every pack leader. Either result serves me. Back at the palace, Grant stood alone before the empty throne. He had not slept since Claire walked away. The black veins had spread across his throat again, and his wolf paced beneath his skin, desperate to follow the bond north. Mason entered carrying a report. Her truck was found near the old council outpost. Grant did not turn. Prepare the guard. The northern packs will call it an invasion. Then they can call it whatever helps them sleep. His voice shook, not with rage, but with the effort of holding himself together. Mason placed another file on the table. Inside was the original decree bearing King Alaric's signature. Grant read every line. When he reached the order concerning the Whitmore children, he closed his eyes. My father did this. Everett executed it, and every king after him protected the silence. Grant looked at the crown beneath glass. For years, he had believed his duty was to preserve what he inherited. Now he understood that duty without truth was only obedience wearing better clothes. He lifted the heavy royal seal from the table and brought it down against the stone edge. The metal split with a sharp crack. Council members gathered in the doorway gasped. Grant turned to them, his eyes burning gold but his voice steady. Open the Great Hall. Bring every pack representative. Release every sealed record concerning the Whitmore purge. An elder alpha stepped forward. Your Majesty, exposing the royal line could destroy the throne. Grant looked toward the northern mountains, where the bond pulsed faintly with Claire's fear. Then let it be destroyed. He set the broken seal on the table. I will not inherit his silence. By noon, every pack representative in Blackridge had received the same file. The original order signed by King Alaric Ashford, the transfer records bearing Everett Shaw's seal, and the names of every Whitmore child erased from royal history. Grant did not hide behind the throne when he addressed them. He stood in the center of the Great Hall without a crown. My family committed this crime, he said. My council protected it. I will not ask you to excuse either. The Northern Alphas watched through a secure video link, their planned rebellion suddenly exposed as part of Everett's deception. Grant placed the broken royal seal on the table. Claire Whitmore is not a threat to this alliance. She is living proof of what fear made this crown become. Then the mate bond pulled hard enough to steal his breath. Claire was afraid. Not miles away in some uncertain direction. North. Underground. Grant turned to Mason. Now. The Royal Guard reached the abandoned outpost before sunset, but Grant ordered them to hold beyond the fence. He entered with Mason and 3 pack witnesses, carrying no ceremonial weapon and no royal banner. Everett was waiting in the basement beside Claire and Noah. You came exactly as expected, Everett said. Claire stood near the open gate, keeping herself between Noah and the council guards. Her face changed when she saw Grant, but she did not move toward him. You released the records? She asked. All of them, even your father's order? Especially that one. Everett laughed softly. A noble confession from a king who has already lost 3 packs. Grant looked at the guards surrounding him. They did not leave because of Claire. They left because you promised them land. Victoria's voice came through the speaker in Mason's hand. She had testified before the full alliance and provided her family's letters. One by one, Everett's guards lowered their hands. His control disappeared without a fight. "You think truth will save your throne?" Everett asked. "No," Grant replied. "Truth decides whether the throne deserves saving." Everett reached for the emergency lever beside the wall. Noah moved first, pulling Claire away as an iron gate dropped between them and Grant. The sudden movement opened Noah's old shoulder injury, and he sank to one knee, pale but conscious. Claire caught him. "Stay with me. I am not going anywhere," Noah said through a strained smile. Everett tried to escape through the rear passage, but Mason blocked the doorway. Grant's wolf surged when he saw Claire trapped behind the gate. Gold filled his eyes. The black lines on his neck darkened. Every wolf in the basement went silent. Everett smiled again. "There he is. The monster your Omega has been hiding." Grant gripped the iron bars. The metal groaned beneath his hands. Claire stood slowly and faced him. "Grant." His breathing turned harsh. "He used you. He used Noah. He destroyed your pack. I know. He deserves justice." "Yes, justice, not your destruction." Grant's wolf pushed harder, demanding control, but Claire did not command him or use her gift. She only placed her palm against the cold bars between them. "Look at me." He did. "Choose who you are." The words reached the man beneath the fury. Grant closed his eyes, released the bars, and stepped back. The gold faded. Everett's smile vanished. Mason opened the gate with the emergency key, and Grant crossed to Claire slowly. He stopped before touching her. "I hid the truth about Noah," he said, with the pack witnesses listening. "I told myself it was protection. It was fear. You deserved better." Claire's eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. "I needed you to trust my choices. I do now, even if your choice is to leave." Behind them, Everett was placed under guard to face judgment before all 12 packs. Claire looked at the man who had surrendered power, exposed his own bloodline, and stopped his wolf without taking her freedom. She placed her hand over his heart, where she had calmed him on their first night. The silver mark beneath her collarbone shone through her coat. "I do not choose the crown," she said. The bond opened between them, warm and clear, no longer a locked door. "I choose the man who told the truth when it cost him everything." Grant covered her hand with his, waiting until she nodded before drawing closer. Around them, the ancient symbols carved into the outpost walls lit one by one, recognizing a bond completed not by command, but by choice. Everett Shaw's judgment took place before all 12 packs, not behind a locked council door. He was stripped of rank, removed from every position of authority, and sent to the northern border under the supervision of the smaller packs he had once treated as expendable. Grant refused to let vengeance become another secret hidden beneath the crown. "Justice should be witnessed," he said, "especially when power is the one on trial." Victoria testified against the men who had helped her father's allies manipulate the council. She did not ask Claire for friendship or forgiveness. She simply began the difficult work of becoming someone different from the woman who had once blocked Claire in the palace hallway. Noah returned to Blackridge to recover, though he refused every title Grant offered him. "I spent half my life being used as a symbol," he told Claire. "I would rather learn how to be your brother again." 3 weeks later, the Alliance voted on Grant's leadership. He remained Alpha King, but the throne no longer held unchecked authority. The new charter gave every pack representation, opened sealed royal records, and made it illegal to confine, claim, or control an Omega because of bloodline, scent, or bond. Claire stood beside Grant when he signed it, but she wore no crown. "The council expects you to become Luna Queen," he said afterward. They were alone in the great hall, where sunlight now reached the silver circle that had once been used to judge her. "The council expects a lot of things," Claire replied. "What do you want?" Grant asked. The question mattered because he meant it. Claire looked toward the rear of the hall, where Omegas had once been pushed out of sight. "I want a council seat for every pack that never had a voice. I want the Whitmore names restored. I want young Omegas to grow up knowing that a bond is an invitation, not a sentence." Grant nodded. "And after that," she smiled, "ask me again when the work is done." Winter passed slowly over Blackridge. The palace changed with it. The cold eastern rooms became a clinic and training center open to every rank. Noah taught young scouts how to recognize council traps. Evelyn finally stopped hiding records behind fireplaces. Mason complained that the palace had become too peaceful, though no one believed him. Grant still had difficult nights. Healing did not erase years of grief in a single season. Sometimes he woke before dawn with his wolf restless and the old darkness pressing against his thoughts. Claire never treated him like a broken man. She would sit beside him, place a cup of coffee in his hands, and remind him that choosing peace once did not mean the choice would never be hard again. Months later, Mason entered the royal library carrying a stack of border reports. He stopped when he saw Grant asleep on the worn leather couch. No crown, no formal coat. Claire rested against his chest with an open book beside her, one hand loosely covering his heart. Grant's breathing was deep and even. Mason began to back toward the door. "Good decision, Commander," Grant murmured without opening his eyes. Claire smiled in her sleep. Mason quietly closed the door. Outside, snow covered the mountain roads and the old black walls of Blackridge. Inside, the fire burned low and warm. The palace had once been built to keep enemies out, but Claire had learned that the strongest walls could also keep truth, love, and mercy from entering. A crown could command loyalty. Fear could force silence. A bond could pull two hearts together. But none of those things could create a home without choice. In the end, Grant did not become worthy of Claire because he was willing to fight for her. He became worthy because he was willing to listen, to change, and to tell the truth when it threatened everything he had inherited. Claire did not save a king by making him stronger. She reminded him that strength without kindness was only another kind of prison. And sometimes, the person the world overlooks is the one who teaches its most powerful leader how to finally rest.